Hey, we're here at Teknik and we're just checking out a few things with Nick Doll working on the Ténéré 700. Nick and his crew, a great bunch of guys. If you need your suspension done, Teknik Motorsports here at Penrith, fantastic. So Nick, how are you, mate?
Well, thank you. Good. A little bit busy, but good.
Now, what's that bike behind you, mate? Is that my Ténéré 700?
Yes.
I'm loving it. Look at that. It's just looks a bit naked though. It's got no rear shock and no front end. I don't think.
No. This has been the voice most of the week.
Rightio. So, Nick, what are the plans with this? We'll sit down and have a chat in a minute. But roughly, because you're still working out a solution for these bikes, aren't you? We've got trial and error at this stage.
No, we've got a pretty solid stage one package. Greg's had his bike now for probably 8 weeks, I suppose. So, but we haven't reached the end of what we feel the standard componentry is capable of. So there's a lot of talk about you can get an aftermarket rear shock and put it in, and you can put aftermarket fork cartridges in it. But I still think there's a lot of performance left in the OEM components that it's still on the dyno, off the dyno, into the bike. So we're still trying to make what will essentially be our base package. We're still trying to make it as good as we can. We've actually developed a fork piston kit for the front fork. We're working on some preload adjustable caps. We've got 2 of our rear springs have come in. One's an 80 Newton, one's an 85.
So Nick, you talked to me about the different spring rates. Now you said, what does it come with? What's the standard spring?
It comes with a 6.9 kilo, right? So it's basically 68 newtons.
Now I imagine that's going to suit an 65 to 75 kilo rider with no luggage.
75 with a very minimal amount of gear.
So you're going to step up the spring rate, the heavier the rider, but then you've got all the valving adjustments and everything else to do as well.
So you have to consider them as 2 elements that are completely apart, and then on the bike they come together. So it's more. So as far as the spring goes, it's a dumb piece of metal that just bends.
It just does one thing.
Right. It doesn't know whether you're going slow or fast or whatever it is. So selecting the spring is more about going, how heavy is the person on the bike? Is there a pillion on it? How much gear are they carrying?
Okay, so some forums they're saying you need a 9.5 Newton meter spring. Is it Newton meters we're talking about?
Yeah,
or spring rate?
So,
but I know that on Greg's bike, and Greg's 25, 30 kilos on me, and he's been losing a bit of weight because I think he's in love, but he's only got a 9 Newton meter spring.
Yeah, he's got a 90 on his bike.
And I've ridden his bike, and I found it. I'd like probably a little bit plusher on my bike. So what would you recommend for someone like me? I'm 100 kilos. I am losing weight because I'd rather carry more luggage than baggage. So if I'm 90 kilos, say, and with boots I've got an extra few kilos and maybe 20, 30 kilos of luggage, what would you put on this bike?
So we're going to put on an 85.
Okay. So 85, not a 90, not a 95.
Don't forget, the spring and the dampening are 2 elements that come together. Yeah. So what we're seeing out of England and in Europe is people are just getting a 95 Newton and banging it on, and they're not doing anything else, which is fine when you're tarmac touring.
Which is 90% of Europe is gentleman's touring, we call it.
Tarmac adventuring.
Yeah. So for Australian conditions where woo boys, rocky, rutted fire trails, you're going to have to do a lot with the valving, or
what we end up doing is bringing the spring rate back, and we put more dampening into the shock. So the shock is still compliant. You still don't end up with something that's too firm, but it just means that when you're on the dirt, it rides like a dirt bike. It's not like
And I would say that the average Australian adventure rider that rides this type of the mid-range bike, like 790 or a Ténéré 700, he's going to try and ride it like a big dirt bike. There will be guys that are going to cruise on it, but they want the best of both worlds. So you've probably got to go to the worst case scenario, not the smoothest case scenario.
We don't. As far as dampening and spring rate selection for all of our customers, it's a case by case. So we don't necessarily use the same dampening on everyone's bike.
So there's not one solution for everybody.
No, we don't.
Even with the spring rate,
no.
especially the valving and damping.
The spring rate's the easy part. Is what does this person need? They might be young, they might be old, they might be carrying lots of gear, they might be carrying a pillion. They might be the kind of person that when they get to an erosion bank or woo boy, they like to accelerate over it, they want to jump the bike, or they're cautious on it. So everyone's different. I would say a large proportion of our customers, if they have an opportunity to get the bike in the air, they'll do it.
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, I'm just going to have a look at these springs over here. So I'm just going to turn this around. Can you talk to me about the 3 springs that you've got sitting here?
So that's the 85 that we've just got into stock. That one's ours. That's an iBark.
And that, now to me, they're both 85s, is that correct?
No, so that's a 90.
So how come it looks like a thinner spring, but that's not what rates it? It's the actual tension on the spring.
So one of the things we're very conscious about is durability. How long will these springs actually last? How long will they be in service for? So in the case of these, if we were designing a spring for a motocross application, it has to be light. But it means for durability,
they wear out faster.
Well, you're just taking more chances.
So with the white one, which is an 85, it's a slightly thicker gauge, so it's going to be a bit more durable.
It's just a very conservative product.
Now I see on the iBark spring you've got a spacer machined in.
Yep.
Does that do anything other than just fit the spring to
all it does.
To the
it's
mechanism?
228 mil long. It needs to be 240.
Right.
So that's all it is.
So Nick, what about the front end, mate? What are we going to do with the forks on the bike? Yeah, and they're here, are they? That's what those.
Yes,
those
they are.
are.
Sitting next to that
Right.
KX454. So we do have a kit that I was trying to get time to put in it. I haven't actually put the kit into a T7 fork yet. Yours was going to be the first.
Yep.
That will depend on how urgently you need this bike back. I will put the kit into.
Well, I need it back for the Ténéré Tragics,
which is
at the end of February. So you can have the bike for another week.
heaps of time.
Heaps of time.
Heaps of
You
time.
heard it from the man himself.
Yeah, heaps of time. So that's what I'm planning on doing the fork as far as damping is concerned. Our fork springs haven't turned up yet. The standards are 0.57. We're getting springs made in 60s and 65s, which we expect here in about 2 weeks. I still probably wouldn't put a heavier fork spring in it.
Would you do anything with the valving though? Or
Yeah. So it has to be changed completely.
Right. So why wouldn't you put a heavier spring in the fork for a rider like me? Because I'm not as aggressive or as heavy as.
No, because you have to remember what the design process of the T7 was.
And I'm actually, I joke with people that I like to ride it at between 60 and 80% because I've hurt myself too many times at my age, 57, to ride it like I stole it. So I have pulled back a fair bit. But so I probably would like something that's a little bit smoother and plusher, and I'll probably use it as a mixed terrain bike. I'm going to do at least 50% road as much as I do off-road. So that is one of the other reasons you wouldn't go to a heavier spring, or is it all more to do with it, not a terrain-based thing?
It's just when this bike is a compromise when it's made, because it has to be sold all over the world as the same bike.
Yeah. To tall people, short people, fat people, skinny people.
People who ride on the road, ride in the dirt, it's got to be everything. And that's why it's ended up, people are saying, why is the rear spring so soft in comparison to the forks? They've simply made the fork springs harder, so on the tar, it holds up.
It doesn't dive under braking.
Dive as much.
Yeah.
If it was a pure dirt bike, then the fork spring rate would be less. If it was a pure road bike, the rear spring rate would be higher.
Right. So you'll leave the springs in the forks as they are.
I'm going to leave them as they are because I don't believe that you need heavier fork springs.
Yeah.
And there's not a world of difference between a 0.57 and a 6.0. Oh, sorry, and a 0.57 and a 0.60. Depends if you're talking newtons or kilos, but let's not ever start talking about that.
But the standard, so you're saying that the standard forks, the spring rate in them is going to suit most riders in most conditions because they've done a fairly good job, Yamaha, of picking that right combination.
I think as a standard fork, it's actually quite good.
So what does the valving do then?
It's everything that the springs aren't.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all to do with how fast the fork moves. That is all about.
So this is where you're on a rough track and you hit the first corrugation, and then by the time you hit the third one, the spring's all out of.
No, it's no.
I've seen that where you see those guys, they go bang 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 and they get kicked. So valving must help.
Normally the rear that can be a whole pile of things. So that can be packing or all sorts of things. So what we're aiming to do with the fork.
I've always said suspension is a black art,
and
Nick's just proving me correct.
By dyno,
You've got a dyno and you're
fine. It's more about making the front compliant, right?
Yeah.
Because it can't be harsh. You've got to bang out big days, 600Ks, 700Ks a day. You have to be comfortable. You can't get off. The bike can't tire you out halfway through the day.
I mean, you remember the bikes you built for Clubby and I way back when, and they were the 450 desert sleds you built for APC.
Sure.
And if I got on that bike and just rode like a normal bike, it felt like I was riding a plank. But as soon as we loaded it up with all the luggage we needed to carry on that trip, and actually rode the bike through rough terrain, it came into its own. It was absolutely glorious.
They were something else though, because they were specifically made to carry gear, and they were a competition enduro bike base. Where you do struggle to get the intended purpose of the bike and change it completely. Whereas this, we're not really changing it. This is pretty much...
We're not changing the purpose. We're just trying to make it more comfortable for the average 6 foot, 100 kilo
the important points for me on the fork are it has to be compliant, so you can do big Ks. You have to be able to have confidence in the fork, and then if you hit something too fast, it doesn't do anything weird. So you can come across a creek, washout, or a gutter, or a woo boy, and you go, I'm going way too fast.
You're not going to get twisted up over it.
And you can just jump it and land and go, that was fine. So it's very much about the bike saving your ass.
So I've read on the forums that you can buy fully enclosed cartridge shock or front end and rear in England or in Europe, and they're like millions of dollars. Well, they're actually about £1,000.
They're about £1,000 an end.
So that's £2,000,
2,000
plus shipping. So it's going to cost you $4 or $5 grand to get it here.
About $5,
And that's about a quarter of the cost of the bike.
Sure. Yep.
It's a little big spend.
It is.
You don't need to do that. The average person out there, some people might want to do it, but the average person at this stage have worked out what are they going to be spending to get the suspension perfect.
Right. I certainly have not reached the end of what the standard componentry can do. I think that we can get the standard componentry so good, it's going to be a very small amount of people, and probably the people who just have $5 grand kicking around, they just like to spend on their bike, that they're going to want the...
And they'll have the carbon fibre and everything else as well,
But the standard componentry is very capable. It's just set up from the factory very soft and very comfortable, and that's why so many people jump on the standard bike and say, this thing's fantastic. It's only once they start to push it, if that's what they're inclined to do, they might say, I don't have enough dampening support out of the fork, I don't have enough out of the rear, I put a heavier spring on the rear, it now kicks me a bit and I'm not that comfortable. So that's what we're really aiming to do with the standard componentry. It is KYB, it's good quality, and I'm by no means at the end of it.
I'm really happy to hear you say that Yamaha have done a very reasonable job, and basically you're just fine-tuning what's there.
Yep.
So what would the average person then want to spend on that to get it right for him?
We're doing a fork revalve, the shock revalve, and the shock spring. As I said, I'm not envisaging most people would need fork springs, and we're doing that for, it's about $1,000.
So $1,000 is a lot better than $5,000 or $4,000. So
yeah, and I'm, it'll be interesting to test some of the really high-end stuff when it turns up, and see just how close we actually are.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of respect for everyone out there in the world that's doing great things for the Ténéré 700.
Sure.
There's Rally Raid in England and other companies, and America hasn't started yet, but they will. So this is the bike. This is not the bike that you're going to win. This is watch the build. This is my bike. I'm going to keep this one. But what we're going to do, guys, is a brand new Ténéré, kitted out just like the finished product that I end up with. So watch the build. You'll get to see some of the stuff we're putting on the bike, in the bike, doing to the bike, and you'll end up at the end of the year spend $300 with Adventure Moto, Tyres for bikes. Might even be able to enrol Nick in it. We'll let you know further about that. If you come and get your suspension done, you might get in the draw as well. So we're going to give away Ténéré 700. By the time we're finished with it, it's going to be about $20,000 worth of bike. Now, Nick, what's that in your hand, mate? That looks like
this is
TFX.
Made in Europe, made in the Netherlands, TFX. So it's a 3-way adjustable. And yeah, it's for the 700.
So why would we jump from building a shock out of the more than capable components that are on the bike and upgrading them, beefing them up a little bit, to something like this fully replacement shock?
We sell products like this for a couple of reasons, but probably the main call for it as we get is people say, I don't want my shock or any part of my bike to leave my shed.
Right. So you build it as a replacement.
So
you send them
send me a shock.
Send me a shock.
Send me a shock. They can get their OEM shock, pull it out, get this set up, right spring on it for them, and just bolt it in.
Now, I see here you've got some other Italian componentry in the box there.
We bought some Andriani cartridge kits out of Italy, and what we didn't realise when we bought them is that they only have 180 millimetres of fork travel in them.
And what's the stock? 210. 210.
So they're 30 millimetres less, and I was a bit surprised about that before I put them in a bike, and I asked them, and they said these cartridges are designed for road use only.
And I imagine in Europe, a lot of people buying their Ténéré 700 are using it for the road.
There's not a lot of dirt like there is here. It's not. There's a great deal of tar. And they end up being very much a tarmac tourer. And
is that the bump stop there? So this is going to, so you really would need to change this up a bit.
So what I'm going to do before we actually sell any of these, I have to pull them apart, which I have got them and pulled them apart when I first got them. I can get them out to 210 mil of travel quite easily.
Okay, and what if someone wants...
And I can get them out to 230 mil of travel quite easily.
Right.
But there's a fair bit of testing I need to do before I can sell this product to people, because I don't want to sell it to them.
And just a quick question then, do people, because the stock travel on the front forks on the Ténéré is 210.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about you can get, or you need 230. Really, does most people need 230?
Where does it end?
Yeah.
250,
300.
300.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is the amount of travel the bike has in its stock is all that it needs.
Well, I mean, I rode this bike,
bike?
at the launch,
Yeah.
the Ténéré launch, and Greg Yeager put the ride together, and it was a really good mix of fire trail and some single track thrown in there. And there was some actually pretty interesting technical stuff, and there was some bikes were dropping here and there, but I found the stock suspension, standard suspension, quite adequate
Sure.
at the pace we were riding.
Yep.
I wasn't pushing hard,
Yep.
but I didn't find it lacking.
And did you get in situations where you found the bike a little bit tall?
Look, I'm a 6-foot bloke with 6'2" legs, so
Yep.
I found it okay. But I did notice some of the shorter people on the ride did get into situations where it was too tall, and I think that a lowering kit for this bike that's not going to cost a bomb would suit a lot of people
Yep.
who are 5'10" and under.
In the more technical areas, if this bike was 30 millimetres taller,
Imagine
would
that
you
I would
have been
yes.
okay?
No, I think
You would have thrown it on its head.
I don't think it needs to be taller than it is.
No.
Personally, I think that and you're going to do my front forks, leave them at 210, mate. I'd be happy with that.
No,
Yeah.
I'm going to, and that's why that we will be offering a kit with the Andriani cartridge kit with the TFX shock that is 230 mil both ends.
Yep.
But it is something that I sell to people with a bit of hesitation because that does make the bike taller.
So you'll also be able to do a lowering kit for this bike?
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be, what sort of travel would you be looking at in a lower bike? About
we
the 180
could-
that's in
yeah,
this?
so it would be about 180. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also,
And you can take something out of the rear shock as well?
yes.
Yeah.
So offering a pair of links for the rear to take it about 30 mil, and for that you could just slide the forks up in the tube.
And does that
so
change
it's,
the dynamic of the bike, putting
does.
lowering links in? Yeah.
It does.
So my advice to anyone out there who's considering lowering your bike, get it done professionally. It's one thing to drop your forks through and put lowering links that aren't made for the bike on it. But personally, if you're going to get suspension done for your weight and your height, talk to a professional.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for
Thank
explaining
you.
all that. See you there.